Heaven and earth fell unnaturally silent. The spiritual chi of the surroundings trembled, as if responding to an unseen will, and the laws of the world seemed to blur at their edges. In that fleeting instant, reality itself appeared on the verge of unraveling, caught between illusion and truth. At the center of it all, Han Li sat motionless, eyes closed, as boundless power quietly began to awaken. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. Pop. The moment the small ghost flew into the passageway, its form ruptured violently, bursting apart into a swirling mass of yin-qi. Wang Tiangu, whose spiritual sense had been directly linked to the ghost, turned deathly pale. It was as if the destruction of the ghost had dealt a heavy backlash to his own soul. With fury blazing in his eyes, Wang Tiangu turned toward the Confucian scholar and demanded, "What is the meaning of this? Don't tell me there's some hidden trick within this passage. Did you truly believe that the passage leading to the spirit ether garden would be something ordinary?" The scholar replied indifferently, "Let alone a minor ghost with a hollow form. Even souls at the level of a ghost king would be scattered the instant they entered. Even I would need to rely on the power of the portrait scroll to pass through safely. In any case, the passage has already been opened. Whether you can make it through or not will depend entirely on yourselves." After speaking, the scholar showed no intention of lingering. His body dissolved into a sphere of emerald light, which streaked through the air and flew straight back into the floating portrait scroll. Wang Tiangu's expression darkened. From the scholar's words, it was clear that formless entities such as ghosts had no way of passing through the passage. He exchanged a startled glance with Wang Tiansheng. Wei Wuya pondered briefly before speaking in a low voice. "I have already extended my spiritual sense beyond the passage. Though what I saw was indistinct, there is no doubt that a separate space exists on the other side. I have no intention of wasting time hesitating. I will enter first. Lingering here may only invite unforeseen complications." As his words fell, his figure transformed into a streak of green light and shot directly into the passage. Wang Tiansheng's expression shifted at the sight. Turning to his disciples, he commanded coldly, "You three will remain here and stand guard. Junior Marshal Brother Wang, let us not be overly cautious. We'll go together. A certain degree of danger is simply the price of entering the spirit ether garden." After speaking, he glanced once more at the portrait scroll floating nearby. Seeing that there were no further changes, he reached out, summoned the scroll into his hand, and casually tucked it into his sleeve. With Wang Tiangu at his side, he then flew into the passageway. After all, the spirit ether garden was rumored to contain countless heavenly medicines. If they lagged too far behind Wei Wuya, the loss could be significant. Thus, the three figures entered the passage one after another, vanishing without a trace as they crossed the boundary between worlds. This isn't the spirit ether garden. At the forefront, Wei Wuya emerged from the passage and surveyed the land before him, his expression sinking into gloom. The world before them was devoid of color, nothing but endless shades of gray. Jagged piles of black stone stretched as far as the eye could see, while thick gray mist blanketed the surroundings, rising more than 100 meters into the air. Within a 5-kilometer radius, not a single hint of vitality could be found. Had they not arrived in person, none of them would have believed the legends describing the spirit ether garden as a paradise overflowing with spiritual herbs and brimming with spiritual qi far denser than that of the mortal realm. When Wang Tiansheng and Wang Tiang arrived, however, their expressions turned strangely complex, a mixture of shock and suppressed anger. Wei Wuya glanced back at them with faint surprise, his guard subtly rising. He had originally assumed that the two would immediately summon Master Kang Kun's remnant soul from the portrait scroll and interrogate him upon arrival. At last, the ghost spirit sect master broke the silence. "Junior Marshal Brother, do you feel it?" His voice carried a trace of restrained excitement. "The devilish qi here is at least twice as dense as that of the mortal realm. If we were to fight here, the power of our devilish arts would be greatly amplified." Wang Tiangu's eyes flickered as he replied with a complicated expression. "Senior Marshal Brother, we cultivate the same devilish arts. How could I not sense it? If we were to cultivate here, our chances of breaking through our bottlenecks would increase dramatically. Hearing this, Wei Wuya stomped his foot in frustration. The stone beneath him shattered into fragments as he spoke coldly. Fellow Taoists, are you not planning to summon the soul remnant and question him? Don't tell me that after expending such great effort, this is all I get. Wang Tiansheng's expression twisted with malice as old anger surged forth. Naturally, if he cannot provide us with a satisfactory explanation, I will let him experience the torment of soul refinement. With a flick of his wrist, he tossed the portrait scroll onto the ground, preparing to summon Master Cancun's soul remnant. But before he could complete the incantation, light flashed from the scroll. A sphere of green light burst forth and shot into the air. Wang Tiangu reacted instantly, thrusting out his hand. A massive pitch-black hand of light, nearly a foot in length, surged forward to seize it. Yet the green light seemed to have anticipated the attack, twisting nimbly through the air and evading capture as it streaked away. Wei Wuya merely watched from the sidelines, his expression unreadable. Wang Tiansheng, however, was furious at the soul remnant's audacity. With a sharp motion, he summoned a crimson command medallion into his hand. His face hardened as he shook it fiercely in the direction of the fleeing green light. The medallion erupted with crimson radiance, and in the distance the ball of green light slowed noticeably, wavering mid-air. A flash of joy appeared on Wang Tiansheng's face, but the next instant the green light steadied itself. With a sudden burst of speed, it shot forward even faster than before, shrinking into a tiny speck at the edge of the horizon. Not only was the Ghost Spirit Sect master stunned, the other two were equally dumbfounded. If I'm not mistaken, Wei Wuya said slowly, a cold smile spreading across his face. The soul fright curse of the Ghost Spirit Sect no longer has any effect on that soul remnant. Interesting. I'll go capture it myself and see what kind of scheme it's playing. Before anyone could respond, his figure blurred into a streak of green mist and shot across the sky. Wang Tiangu finally recovered from his shock. Senior Marshal Brother what? When I used the soul fright curse on him earlier, it worked exactly as intended. You witnessed it yourself. Wang Tiansheng interrupted grimly. Now I'm very curious as to why it no longer works. Let's follow him. I want to see what he's plotting by luring us here. A sinister glint flashed in his eyes as he rose into the air and pursued Wei Wuya. This pocket dimension was limited in size, there was no fear of losing them. Wang Tiangu let out a bitter laugh and could only follow after him. Not long after, the two arrived near the center of the pocket dimension. There they saw Wei Wuya facing the Confucian scholar, who had already materialized into a solid form. To their surprise, the scholar showed not the slightest trace of fear. But when the two raised their heads to look beyond him, their hearts jolted violently. 30 meters behind the Confucian scholar stood a demonic statue over 100 meters tall, carved entirely from fiery crystal and shrouded in faint drifting mist. It possessed 2 arms and 4 legs, a single horn rising from its head, and pitch-black scales that glimmered faintly in the gloom. Its fangs were bared, its expression vicious and ferocious beyond words. Wang Tiangu's heart pounded as he cried out in alarm, "What is that?" The devilish qi it emits is terrifyingly dense. It wasn't the statue's massive size that shocked him. It was the overwhelming devilish qi radiating from it, despite being sealed. The concentration was several times greater than what they had sensed upon arrival, stirring an instinctive sense of dread. "We'll discuss that later," Wang Tiansheng said gravely. "First, let's hear what he has to say." Though fear flickered across his face as he glanced at the demonic statue after a moment's hesitation, he floated down beside Wei Wuya with Wang Tiangu following closely. With the backing of a late nascent soul cultivator, he still had little to fear. When the scholar saw the two arrive, he smiled calmly. "Excellent. Now I won't need to repeat myself. For what reason did you bring us here?" Wang Tiansheng asked evenly, yet as he examined the scholar his heart trembled. Crimson talisman characters were continuously flickering across the scholar's body. The soul fright curse was clearly in full effect, yet despite the pulsing runes crawling over his skin, The scholar wore a radiant smile, devoid of even the slightest hint of pain. His manifested form was completely stable, showing no signs of distortion whatsoever. With unshakable composure, the scholar spoke. Since fellow Taoists, Wang cultivate an ancient devilish art, you must have sensed a kind of devilish qi that does not exist in the mortal world. So what? Wang Tiangu demanded coldly. Are you implying that this place is the Spirit Ether Garden? The scholar chuckled softly. The Spirit Ether Garden. It could be, or it might not be. A chill crept into Wang Tiangu's eyes. What do you mean by that? Do you still intend to toy with us after bringing us here? The Confucian scholar's expression turned strange. Did you truly believe that the cultivators of antiquity would leave behind a secret realm filled with spiritual medicine and abundant qi for later generations to enjoy? Countless years ago, the Spirit Ether Garden did indeed exist. In fact, there were several of them. But they were long since plundered clean and destroyed in battles over possession. This place may once have been an abandoned Spirit Ether Garden, but now— He paused briefly, then continued. Now it is merely a pocket dimension bordering both the Holy Realm and the mortal world. The Holy Realm? Wei Wuya shouted in alarm, his voice sharp with disbelief. You're an elder devil. At the same instant he hastily formed an incantation seal, his body dissolving into rolling green mist as he prepared for battle. You know of our Holy Realm? A flicker of alarm crossed the scholar's face as he glanced at Wei Wuya in surprise. From within the rolling green mist, Wei Wuya replied coldly, Although I know little of the Elder Devil realm itself, I do know this: your kind was never able to coexist with the ancient cultivators. In antiquity, you Elder Devils even attempted to rule over the mortal world. Upon hearing this, the expressions of the Ghost Spirit Sect Master and Wang Tiangu changed drastically. Black light flickered around their bodies as thick yin qi surged forth, wrapping them in dark spheres. When they turned their gazes back toward the Confucian scholar, both of them subconsciously retreated 2 steps. Though neither of them had ever heard of the Elder Devil realm or Elder Devils, Wei Wuya's tense vigilance and the scholar's unsettling calm were enough to put them on high alert. With measured composure, the scholar spoke, his tone deliberate and steady. You need not concern yourselves with what I am. I merely wish to propose an exchange. If you agree, your cultivation will rise by leaps and bounds, perhaps even allowing you to ascend to the deity transformation realm. Would the 3 of you care to listen? The Ghost Spirit Sect Master exchanged a glance with Wang Tiangu, then replied evenly, Very well. There's no harm in hearing such a grand offer. It is quite simple, the scholar continued, his voice smooth and faintly alluring. Do you see the Elder Devil corpse behind me? Assist me in removing its seals, and I will use its body to tear open a passage to the Holy Realm. As your reward, I shall infuse you with the true devil qi of the divine ancestors, reshaping your constitutions into those of supreme devils and granting you entry into our Holy Realm. With your talents, once the devilish qi infusion is complete, your cultivation will surge dramatically. Reaching the deity transformation stage would merely be a matter of time. Remove the seal and infuse devilish qi. The Ghost Spirit Sect Master felt his heart stir violently. An instantaneous and overwhelming increase in cultivation, along with the promise of deity transformation, was an irresistible temptation. He turned toward Wang Tiangu only to see the same desire reflected in his eyes. Having lived for countless years, Wei Wuya was far too shrewd to miss this. He barked sharply, Wake up, you fools! Do you truly believe you'd remain yourselves after being infused with devilish qi? You could lose your minds and become nothing more than puppets of that elder devil. Brother Wei, what do you mean? Wang Tiangu snapped back to clarity as though a bucket of icy water had been poured over his head. Wei Wuya showed no restraint. What do I mean? You dare place your trust in a devil from another world? Even if I don't know exactly what that devilish qi will do to you, do you truly believe that forcefully raising your cultivation with foreign qi is a good thing? The Ghost Spirit Sect Master and Wang Tiangu's expressions turned ugly at his words. Their gazes grew icy as they locked onto the scholar. Hearing this, the scholar frowned, clearly intending to respond, when Wei Wuya's expression suddenly changed. A piercing whistle shrieked from a rock pile 3 meters behind them. In the same instant, a black blur shot forth, piercing straight through the scholar's abdomen. It continued onward for another 30 meters before spiraling into the air. It was a small, jet-black snake, its body smooth and scaleless, gleaming with a glossy sheen. From its head protruded a snow-white horn, no larger than a thumb, yet sharp enough to chill the soul. A bowl-sized hole had been blown open in the scholar's abdomen. There was no blood, his body was not flesh, but within the cavity lay the remains of a shattered walnut-sized crystal. The scholar stared at the broken gem in disbelief. "How did you know where my soul stone was?" From within the green mist, Wei Wuya replied indifferently, "I do not cultivate the ghost Tao, so I don't know what a soul stone is. However, my soul-devouring snake is quite adept at dealing with yin ghosts and demon souls. Destroying a materialized soul remnant is trivial." Hearing this, the scholar let out a bitter smile. His body abruptly collapsed, exploding into a cloud of grey-white qi that roiled violently through the air. The ghost spirit sect master and Wang Tiangu were startled, but when their gazes shifted toward the towering demonic statue in the distance, they finally released sighs of relief. Staring at the devil corpse, Wang Tiangu hesitated before asking, "Fellow Taoist Wei, should we destroy the elder devil corpse?" After a brief silence, Wei Wuya shook his head. "If it could be destroyed, do you think the ancient cultivators would have left it intact? It's best that we leave this place immediately." Wang Tiangu wavered. The ghost spirit sect master then broke the silence. "Brother Wei speaks wisely. This place is far too strange. The sooner we leave, the better." Hearing this, Wang Tiangu raised no further objections and rose into the air. But at that moment, a cold voice echoed from behind them. "Who said you could leave? Since you've arrived at the site where my devil body was sealed, do you truly believe you'll escape alive? Surrender your lives while you still can." The 3 cultivators spun around in disbelief. Before their eyes, the white yin qi that had scattered moments ago condensed once more, forming a dense sphere. In the blink of an eye, it transformed into a grey ghost head bearing a single horn, its malevolent gaze fixed upon them. The ghost spirit sect master was the first to react. With a swift motion, he raised his hand and released a black flying dagger. It cleaved straight through the center of the ghost head, yet the split halves instantly rejoined. As if nothing had happened, a chill ran through all 3 cultivators. Shock filled their faces, and the ghost spirit sect master felt his heart sink. The ghost spirit sect specialized in secret arts designed to control and annihilate ghosts. His flying dagger had been refined precisely for this purpose, yet it had proven completely ineffective. A faint sense of dread crept into his heart. Seeing this, Wei Wuya let out a sharp whistle. The horned snake, spiraling overhead, dove down in a streak of black. At the same time, the green mist around Wei Wuya surged violently, and a massive dark green arm emerged from within it. With a faint tremor, it lunged toward the ghost head in a brutal arc. The other 2 did not hesitate. One spun around, unleashing a dense cloud of yin qi, while the other inhaled deeply and spat forth a sparkling golden skull that charged ahead with a piercing howl. In an instant, the 3 joined forces against the grey ghost head. At that very moment, the ghost head shot upward through the grey mist. Shrill, unnatural shrieks echoed all around it. Suddenly, the massive sealed devil corpse began to glow with black radiance. Its eyes snapped open, firing 2 beams of crimson light that enveloped the ghost head in a shimmering barrier. A thick, bloody stench flooded the air. The combined attacks slammed into the crimson barrier, thunderous rumbles shaking the surroundings as black qi and green light surged violently. Yet moments later, the 3 cultivators halted their assault in alarm as the crimson barrier emerged unscathed. Whether it was devilish qi or the massive poisonous hand, all attacks were absorbed the instant they made contact, causing the barrier to grow even thicker. As for the black snake and the golden skull, their assaults barely made a ripple. The 3 exchanged looks of despair. During this brief delay, a horrifying transformation unfolded within the sealed devil corpse. The black light faded, replaced entirely by pulsating crimson radiance. Threads of blood-red light spilled forth, wrapping the colossal body in blinding brilliance. At the same time, the barrier around the horned ghost head surged with crimson glow. Its eyes closed, and from beneath it sprouted countless slender tentacles of dark red light. They twisted and converged, slowly forming a body. Light continued to pour forth as flesh and bone took shape, layer by layer woven together by radiant threads. The grotesque sight sent waves of numbness through the cultivator's spines. Not only was the elder devil corpse changing, the horned ghost was also growing flesh. As Wang Tiangu stared at the forming body, he noticed the crimson light flowing from the devil corpse's eyes rapidly dimming. In that instant, a legendary secret technique flashed through his mind. His face drained of color as he shouted, "Decay transformation." This is the supreme devilish technique, decay transformation. Raising both arms, he shot out streaks of black light. Two palm-sized copper discs flew forth, slamming into the crimson beams, linking the ghost head and the devil corpse. Black talisman characters crawled restlessly across their surfaces. Hearing the name of the technique, the other two felt their hearts leap in terror and focused all their attention on the attack. When the copper discs struck the beams, they erupted with blinding black light and severed the connection. By then, the ghost head had already acquired an almost complete devil body. It slowly opened its eyes, one purple, one black, both blazing with demonic radiance. A savage grin spread across its face. Bright radiance began to coil around Han Li's body as his surroundings gradually dimmed, turning hazy and indistinct. Outside, countless specks of white light danced through the air like drifting fireflies. Han Li brought his hands together in an incantation seal. Spiritual light surged endlessly around him, and a whirlwind of brilliance rose from the ground, enveloping his figure in a resplendent display. As time passed, the gales grew increasingly violent, roaring with greater strength and frequency. The distant specks of white light were swept inward like moths drawn to a flame. Before long, the winds condensed into a colossal pillar that pierced the heavens, tearing stones and sand from the earth in its wake, raging as though possessed by a devil. At that moment, Han Li's incantation echoed through the tempest. The towering pillar of wind shuddered violently before dispersing, dissolving into thin, glowing clouds that drifted lazily through the air. Another incantation rang out. The luminous clouds instantly turned azure. Soon the thunderous sound of rushing water filled the heavens, and countless surging waves rose into existence. Walls of water over 300 meters high towered around him. Han Li stood at the center within a massive column of water, blue light gleaming from his hands as he formed his seal, looking every bit like a divine ruler of the seas. Suddenly, Han Li's incantation changed, becoming low and muffled. In the blink of an eye, the vast ocean vanished as if it had never existed, replaced instead by raging waves of scarlet flame. From within them emerged more than 10 fire flood dragons, each over 100 meters long, roaring as they spewed blazing flames from their jaws. The inferno soon faded, replaced by a verdant sea of trees, then an endless desert, a frozen world of ice, and countless other realms, each brought forth at Han Li's will. In that moment, he appeared no different from a god presiding over creation itself. Seemingly satisfied, Han Li gathered his magic power and condensed a giant over 3 kilometers tall. The massive figure beat its chest and let out a deafening roar toward the sky. In response, streaks of silver light surged from every corner of the horizon, converging upon the giant like a tidal wave. The heavens were flooded with blinding silver radiance. The giant melted beneath the light as if it were ice under the sun. When the silver brilliance engulfed Han Li himself, searing pain struck his eyes. He cried out miserably and clutched his face. Moments later, the silver light scattered. Han Li felt dazed and disoriented. He abruptly opened his eyes in alarm, only to find that the silver radiance and the illusory world had completely vanished. He was seated inside a secluded chamber, his robes drenched in sweat. Taking a deep breath, Han Li steadied himself. His memories slowly returned. He was inside a sealed room within Devilfall Valley. Not long ago, he had consumed the nature origin pill he had refined, and the eruption of its medicinal power had dragged his mind into an illusory world. He remained seated, unmoving. As he reflected on his experiences within that illusion, his expression shifted repeatedly, enlightenment flickering across his face one moment, confusion the next. Reaching behind him, he discovered that his robes were soaked through. Han Li let out a bitter smile. The nature origin pill was truly miraculous, despite his powerful spiritual sense. It had still dragged his mind into such a profound illusion. Within that illusory realm, he had lived as a completely different being, experiencing unimaginable events. He wielded boundless power with ease, capable of shifting mountains and seas, summoning wind and rain at will. Yet when he tried to recall the incantations he had spoken, they were maddeningly vague. He could not remember a single word. Only the sensation of wielding the world's spiritual power remained vivid and unmistakable, as though he had truly experienced it with his own body. Han Li was certain this insight would prove invaluable when attempting to break through to the next realm of cultivation. Closing his eyes once more, he sat motionless in silent contemplation. Half a day later, Han Li finally opened his eyes. Calm had fully returned to his expression, and all traces of confusion were gone. Rising to his feet, he raised his hand and struck the stone door before him with a spell seal. Spiritual light flickered across the surface as the door slowly opened, allowing Han Li to walk out unhurriedly. The moment he stepped outside, a streak of white light shot from the stone wall and slipped into his sleeve. It was Silvermoon in her fox form. Han Li walked toward the cave's entrance and asked calmly, "How long was I in seclusion? Did anything happen during that time?" From within his sleeve, Silvermoon replied respectfully, "Master was in seclusion for 2 days. During that time, Violet Spirit already emerged, but upon seeing that the restrictions protecting your cave were still intact, she returned to her residence." Han Li nodded indifferently. Given her lower cultivation, the nature origin pill should have had a lesser effect on her. It's no surprise she emerged earlier. What surprises me more is that you didn't wish to take one. Silvermoon's helpless voice followed. "Master should know that I'm quite different from a human cultivator. I am a Silvermoon wolf possessing the body of a demon fox. Aside from pills meant specifically to advance cultivation, I dare not recklessly consume cultivator medicine. Who knows what harm it might cause? I would rather cultivate longer than take such a risk." Han Li frowned slightly, thought for a moment, then nodded without saying more. Naturally, he did not waste the remaining spirit kindle fruits. He had consumed them before taking the nature origin pill. After their medicinal power dissolved into his body, his cultivation experienced a modest but noticeable increase, truly befitting a spirit medicine rarely seen in this world. When Han Li reached the cave's exit, he saw his puppets dutifully guarding the gate. With a few steps forward, he swept them into his storage pouch in a flash of white light. He then opened the stone gate with a magic technique and calmly walked out. The instant he emerged, a streak of light shot out from one of the neighboring mountains. Seeing it approach, Han Li calmly waved his hands. Formation flags and plates embedded in the surrounding ground flew up one after another, streaking into his hands in trails of azure light. "Brother Han, you finally emerged," a gentle voice called out. "I thought it would take you at least another half day." The streak of light arrived before Han Li, revealing Violet Spirit's figure. She hovered in the air, smiling sweetly as the glow around her face faded, revealing her breathtaking beauty. Han Li smiled faintly. "It seems fellow Taoist Violet Spirit achieved excellent results from the nature origin pill. You should be only a few years away from advancing to mid-core formation stage. Allow me to offer my congratulations in advance." Violet Spirit's eyes flickered with delight. "Brother Han flatters me. The nature origin pill merely spared me several decades of arduous cultivation. On the other hand, Brother Han now stands a real chance of reaching mid-nascent soul stage. That is far more deserving of congratulations." Han Li replied calmly. "Fellow Taoist Violet Spirit overestimates the pill's effect on nascent soul cultivators. although it is said to benefit all cultivators below deity. Transformation, the lower one's cultivation, the greater its effect. Core formation cultivators are nearly guaranteed advancement, but this is not the case for nascent soul cultivators. Even so, Violet Spirit said with a smile, the nature origin pill is invaluable for breaking through bottlenecks. Brother Han need not be so modest. With the aptitude you displayed in reaching nascent soul stage within 200 years, you should be only one step away from mid-nascent soul. Aptitude. Han Li couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. Though he did not correct her, he silently shook his head. Violet Spirit pursed her lips about to say more when a thunderous rumble erupted in the distance. It was as if the entire world had been shaken violently. Han Li remained steady, but Violet Spirit was caught off guard and nearly fell from the air. She hastily stabilized herself in a burst of light and cried out, "What was that? What's happening?" Han Li did not answer. His expression grew serious as he turned toward the source of the disturbance. Yi, that direction. His heart stirred. That's where the map indicated. At that moment, a white line howled across the horizon, booms trailing behind it. In the blink of an eye, the white light thickened and massive waves of white chi surged toward them. As far as the eye could see, a boundless towering wall of white chi engulfed the surrounding mountains as it advanced. In mere moments, it was less than a kilometer away. Not good. Han Li's expression changed instantly. With a flick of his sleeve, he summoned a small blue shield. It spun once around him before expanding into a massive barrier. Pointing at the shield, he released a layer of blue light that enveloped him completely. Still uneasy, he spat out a ball of blue icy flame, detonating it 30 meters ahead. The flame crackled brilliantly as frigid chi expanded outward. In the blink of an eye, a 20-meter-tall ice mountain formed before him. Violet Spirit reacted just as quickly, releasing an embroidered scarf that spread a protective mist of light around her. Seeing Han Li's ice mountain, she hurriedly flew to his side. At that moment, the surging wave of chi finally arrived. The sky darkened. Explosive sounds rang out as earth shattered violently. The ice mountain trembled as dozens of massive boulders smashed into it, each impact producing a piercing clang that echoed through the air, sending chills through the heart. That's all for today's content. See you in the next part. Support me by becoming a member. It will give me more motivation. Thank you so much.